Good evening, everyone. I am Reverend Dr. Deborah Stapleton. I'm the chairperson for the International Awareness and Involvement Committee, and I just want to welcome everyone here. Um, this is World AIDS Day, and the UN AIDS is highlighting their theme is end inequalities, in AIDS, in pandemics. This is the 40th year since the first AIDS cases were reported. And we know that HIV still threatens the world. And today, the world is off track from delivering on the shared commitment to end AIDS by 2030, not because of the lack of knowledge or tools to beat AIDS, but because of structural inequalities that obstruct proven solutions to HIV prevention and treatment. We have a fabulous panel tonight, and it's led by none other than our renowned uh, I almost said Reverend because I'm around Reverend so much, but Dr. Patricia Whitley Williams. And I'm not going to spend too much time. I just want to welcome you and just say thank you for attending. We are going to record and we are going to place this on our chapter's website so that it can be heard for others who could not make it tonight. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Pat.
Thank you so much, Reverend Stapleton, Zora Stapleton. Welcome, everyone. We're going to move right into our polling questions. So if I could have the first question, we're going to do 3 questions just to kind of sample where we are in terms of what we know about HIV today. So the first question. So the first question, if you would just, whoops, it disappeared. If you would just place your, okay. So the first question is, which one of the following groups had the highest number of newly diagnosed HIV infections in recent years in the US? There's a single choice. So if you would just mark one. And you should have a submit, I believe. Okay. And we should be able to see the response. Okay, so as you see, a third thought men having sex with men, highest number, a half men having sex with women, and only 20% thought that injecting drug users had the highest number of new HIV infections recently. Okay, and the next question. So African Americans, Blacks, and Latino Hispanics represented about 70% of all new HIV cases in the US in 2019. True or false? If you would record your answer. And we'll see. Okay, so true, 70s, almost 3/4 of you thought that that was a true statement, and 24% thought false. Okay, next, and the third question. We only have 3, and then we'll move right along. The following are ways for you to prevent HIV infection. There is a single choice. So know your status, take your medicines. If you're infected, take your medicines. A and B are correct. And then the last choice is A, B, and C are correct. Okay. And let's see how we answered those. All right, it looks like 81% of you thought all A, B, and C were correct, and 20% picked one, just know your HIV status. Well, that was great. Thank you very much for participating in that. So we'll move right on. We have a few slides, not too many. And if we can just remove that polling question. So there are approximately 1.189 million people in the US who have HIV diagnosed in 2019, but only 87% knew that they had HIV infection. The next slide. So what is the most common way of becoming infected with HIV? So there were almost 37,000 new HIV diagnoses in the US in 2019. And almost 2/3 of them, or 65%, acquired HIV from men having sex with men or male-to-male sexual contact. Only almost a quarter, or 23%, acquired HIV through heterosexual contact, which is men having sex with men, and only 7% injection drug user, and only 4% who were both men having sex with men and injecting drug users. So the most common way of becoming infected in the US with HIV in 2019 were men having sex with men. Next slide. And if we look at the new HIV diagnosis in that year by race, ethnicity, Black or African Americans and Hispanic or Latino people are disproportionately affected. So of the 37,000 new HIV diagnoses in 2019 in the US, as you can see, Black Americans accounted for almost 50%. Latino, Hispanic accounted for about 30%, and white about 25%. So if we look at both Black and brown people, we represented 71% of all new HIV diagnoses in the US. Next slide. And if we look at the most affected subpopulations, gay and bisexual men are the population most affected by HIV, men having sex with men. And if we look at those cases that made up the most, they were Black American, Hispanic, and HIV accounted, white MSM accounted for close to 23,000 of the 36,000 cases. But you can see it is disproportionate in terms of Black and Hispanic men having sex with men. Next slide. So how can HIV infection be prevented? Well, know your HIV status. Everyone should get tested for HIV. If you're pregnant, definitely HIV testing is part of routine prenatal care. Protect yourself during sex by using condoms. If you inject illegal drugs, you can learn how to clean your needles with bleach and clean water before use. And of course, do not share your needles. If your partner is HIV infected, you can take HIV medicines as what they call pre-exposure prophylaxis, as PrEP. And I think the public is not aware of that. So if you are a sexual partner of someone who's HIV infected and you're not infected, you can actually take HIV meds to prevent yourself from becoming infected. If you have HIV, obviously take your medications. In emergency situations, if a person is exposed to someone who is HIV infected, such as in a rape or other situations, you can actually go to the emergency room and be prescribed HIV medicines. And we call that a post-exposure prophylaxis. You take them for about a month to prevent becoming infected with HIV. And then to get tested, and if people have other sexually transmitted diseases or infections like gonorrhea, GC, whether you got clap, syphilis, whatever, get tested and treated for those so that you won't be more likely to get HIV during sexual contact. And I think that's the last slide, the next slide. Okay, great. Well, now we're going to get to the most interesting part of our program. We have two wonderful speakers. I'm going to introduce them both, and then one will follow the other, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. It's my pleasure to introduce Jackie Williams. She has been active in the HIV community for more than 20 years. Professionally, she has provided HIV counseling and testing. She is a community health worker. She's provided peer support and navigation for persons with HIV. Jackie has a long history of working with and supporting other women. She serves as an advocate for the state's Ryan White program. She's the mother of 3 children. She is a dear friend, and especially a dear friend to CJA. She is a past CJA Woman of Achievement recipient. She participated several years ago as a speaker for our HIV education program for our youth. Many of these were high school students in the 3 counties that we serve. And she is above all an advocate for wellness for all. Immediately following Ms. Williams, we will hear from George Michael Alston. He reminds me that he has the same name as the singer George Michael, the same birth date, just different in terms of years of age. He is currently working as a wellness navigator and a medical biller for a psychologist. Although born in the Bronx, he moved to New Jersey and spent his younger years in Jamesburg before moving to New Brunswick. He aspires to be a film writer, film producer, and he hopes that that would give insight and positive direction to the world. His ultimate dream, though, is to buy an old abandoned hotel that could be turned into a homeless shelter, and he would name it David's Hope. He is multi-talented and has many hobbies, including interior design, furniture making, window treatments, and cooking. He finds his work in HIV awareness, prevention, and surviving so fulfilling that it gives him much joy, and he is here to share his message. So without further ado, Jackie Williams, if you would please share your story. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jackie Williams. I am a 66-year-old Black female HIV infected. About 30 years ago, I turned to a life of drugs, which took me to, what do you call it today? Prostitution. They call it sex worker. And I didn't know it at that time. So having unprotected sex to get the money to pay for the drugs that I was doing. And I also have a child who was born perinatally infected, which I never wanted that to happen. The work that I do today reflects on how my life was, and I'm able to help other people who are suffering from using drugs and who are HIV infected. To be told that you're HIV infected or any disease is just terrible. So I wanted to go back a little bit and tell you a little bit about being HIV infected. When I was told, I didn't pay much attention. And so I hope that what I say today will help somebody who is out there doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. This will help them to realize you go get tested. That's the most important thing. I had a friend who was in the hospital, and I went to see him, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I wasn't paying attention. You know, I just did things my way. And he passed away, but I told him, I said, you know, if this is a boy, I'm going to name him after you. But it turned out to be a girl. I just wasn't listening. And that's the hardest part for me is having to deal with living every day, knowing that I passed on a disease to an innocent person who happens to be my child. But right now she's a beautiful person. She's very smart, and she puts me in my place when she has to. But the message that I want to bring today is get tested. You know, my story doesn't have to be your story. My story is because I chose to do things the way I wanted to, and that wasn't the right way. The work that I do is very rewarding and frustrating at the same time, because sometimes people don't listen. And I think it brings me back to when I was not listening, you know, so I try my hardest to get my story and point across. Sometimes you have to tell little tidbits about your life in order for somebody to really hear you. The stigma that is attached to this disease is still alive and well. It's alive and kicking, you know. Unfortunately, some of the doctors, they really need to be retrained. I saw a doctor way back when I first got diagnosed. He asked me, I went to a dentist and he said, your case is a little complicated, but I had been going to the dentist for a while. And all of a sudden you tell me my case is a little complicated. I was very upset, but I held my composure and I told him, I want my records now because I'm leaving. So I think that the doctors, I'm not saying all doctors are that way, but you know, fear is something that we all live with. But if you know what you're doing, and if you don't know, go back and be retrained, you know, that's a very big thing for me. And the population that I serve in the job that I'm working, there are a lot of seniors who are infected and they need help. They need transportation. Some of them can't get around because of they have comorbidities that are causing them not to be able to do that. You know, when you're getting ready to speak, you have all this stuff ready to say, you don't know what to say. So if I sound like a bumbling idiot, I'm not. Yeah, drug use is a big thing that we're dealing with. A lot of homeless people that the population we serve in Plainfield. There are a lot of homeless people that they have nowhere to go, they have no money, and they're undocumented. So trying to get them help is a challenge. But I do say that whatever they come in the office with, we treat them with dignity. You have to do that because people are afraid, you know, and fear is just what it is. So I want to say, please, if you're having unprotected sex, or you're having sex, you have many sex partners, get tested. You have to get tested to know. And if you've heard of U equals U, means undetectable, untransmittable. If you're undetectable and you're having sex and you don't use protection, you won't be able, you won't have to, it doesn't have to be that it's spread to the next person. Yeah, that's a big thing, U equals U. But there's nothing else really for me to say, but I'm proud of who I am today. And I'm grateful for you guys having me to speak. I always speak and I always mess it up sometimes, but I know you still love me. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that's not always easy.
No, it's not.
Exactly. So we really appreciate that. And your message is loud and clear. I have some questions for you, but I'm going to ask you after George Michael speaks. So
okay.
On to George, and then we're going to take questions and answers afterwards. But thank you for sharing that story, and you're beautiful. You really are.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Michael. I'm 6 years old. I'm a Black male who has sex with men. I contracted HIV while I was diagnosed in 1999. So I'm like 21, 22 years in. And the lifestyle I lived really, it was wild. It was crazy. I used to do runway modeling, so I thought it was all about me. I used to be in the clubs, running the streets, having sex with this one, that one, and the next one. And I saw like my friends, you know, getting sick and stuff like that. But of course, young and immature. I won't say stupid, but young and immature, you think it can never happen to you. And I've seen a lot of my friends die off, and unfortunately, and it was very sad. Thank God I am still here. Like I said, I'm 21 years in. I have 2 sons. Thank God neither one of them have it. Trying to think what else. Like Jackie said, you think of everything you want to say. But my goal is to basically, I know when I was diagnosed, I cried 5 minutes tops. And I said, okay, now tell me what I have to do to stay alive. I was done. I was not mourning. That was my mourning period. That's the way I'll put it. And I try, and I know everybody can't be me. So when I'm talking to people or I'm listening to their stories, because I'm a wellness navigator. So when I'm listening to their stories, I listen to them and I let them finish and see how they are so I can meet them where they are. And I let them know this is not your end. And you too can make it. I tell them how long I've had it. I tell them the struggles. Yeah, and I was not compliant for years, and I developed a cancer, a very rare skin cancer called Kaposi sarcoma. It started in my foot, went all the way up my leg. I fought it for 7 years, and I was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital 3 times a year for infections and chemo and all that. Finally, I had to say, all right, chop it off. And so I could get on with my life. I thought if I got my leg cut off, I wouldn't be attractive to anybody. See, that's all a mental thing. That's psychological. I'm still the same person with one leg. I'm still wearing my clothes. I still feel good about me. And I try to empower people and let them know, yes, all right, you're going through this. You're going to go through that. And just because you have HIV, that means that now you just have to live your life differently than you were. That, okay, the world doesn't stop right now unless you want it to stop for you. I said, but I tell you what, I'm not stopping with you. I'll bring you with me. I refuse to give up. And I'm doing better now than I've ever done in my entire life. And I'm thankful. Thankful to God. I'm thankful to supportive people. And Jackie's been trying to get me to come in for 19 years. And here I am now. They can't blow me out of here with dynamite. So I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And I'm just here for the people. I'm here to do what I have to do, enlighten people, let them know, let's move on. This can be done. And the ones that don't have it, don't be afraid. Like Jackie said, you equals you, undetectable.
Undetectable and untransmittable, yes.
Mhm. Now my life is going really good. Like I said, my kids are grown, and I have a new partner, and I'm cool. He knows, and I know what we have to do. He's not, and like I said, I wouldn't trade my life. I love the person I have become over these years. In helping people, is like, I guess I should have been doing it the whole time. And I just thank you for listening. Hopefully it was helpful, and hopefully it'll be helpful to someone. Thank you all.
So thank you so much. That was terrific. I would like to, maybe we could just give a round of applause to both our speakers, Jackie and George. That was fantastic. So thank you. But we have some questions. I'm going to start off, and then hopefully please put your questions in the chat. Again, thank you both for sharing your stories. You mentioned that both of you mentioned that living with HIV. And can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that? Because I think there are still people who might believe, as you said, this is a diagnosis. Oh, it's all doom and gloom. So share a little, if both of you could share a little bit in terms of what it means to live like this. I mean, how many, medications are you on? What has changed in your lives?
Okay, so in the beginning, I was just overwhelmed with what am I going to do? Am I going to live? And it was just horrible. I started off having to take 22 pills a day, HIV medicine, plus medicines for heart trouble and now diabetes, and I have trigeminal neuralgia in my face. I mean, it goes on and on. But the thing is, you get the diagnosis and whatever that is, and you deal with it. You face your demon head on. You know, if you walk away, it causes the medication not to work, then you're going to have to take another medication because you've been off it. So don't take holidays. You don't do that. But for me, it was just devastating. But I knew with these 3 children, I had to get it together. I had to get it together and do what I needed to do. Yeah.
Thank you. And George?
And with me, like I said, my mourning period is like very short. I just move on to the next phase. I don't know if I block it out or I just deal with it. And I take 2 pills once a day. And it just makes me more conscious of wanting to live. Like I can't just say, all right, I have HIV, boom, I cried for 5 minutes. And now what do I do? And don't, which I did get to that point and not do it, which led me to get the cancer. So then I had that. So I had to hit that head on. They said, whatever. And I said, okay. They said, so I said, what are we gonna do? I said, well, you're serving the drinks, meaning chemo. You're serving the drinks and I'm here to drink them. Let's get started right there at Robert Wood Cancer Institute. So I had to get a new understanding for it. I wanted to live. So I had to act in a sense that I wanted to live. Take your medicine, be healthy, eat healthy, and do positive things, have a positive outlook on life. I had, like Jackie said, I had 2 sons I had to live for.
Thank you. Yes, terrific. No, thank you again for sharing. Both of you mentioned undetectable or U equals U. And I'm not sure everybody understands what you mean by undetectable. Do one of you want to just say what that means? And, it still means that the HIV infection is there, but what are you referring to when you say undetectable? What does that mean?
Okay, so I've been undetectable for more than 20 years out of the 30 years being positive. It means that the percentage of virus in your blood is less than 20%, 10%, whatever that is. And which means that you're healthy. You have other comorbidities, but you have your HIV under control. And for me, I have like 8 different doctors. So I see them all on a regular basis. No vacations. So undetectable means the amount of virus detected in your bloodstream. So when your T cells are low and the virus load is high, that's bad. So we need to take the medicine to get it under control.
Great, thank you very much for explaining that. There are a couple of questions in the chat. How can we convey the importance of healthy practices for younger generations? That's a great question.
You want to take that, George?
Thank you. I guess social media is our new platform. So we have to get it out there, but in a respectful way. Like you just can't just put anything out there because young people are not receptive to a lot of things. I even look at my own youth, and it's like certain things that they can't do it their own way, like our parents did us. Do this, that, and make sure you do it. They define it, and you just gotta come up with new ways to engage them, to let them know that you're playing Russian roulette with your life. I'm living this, so I can tell you that I played the game and I got shot. Thank God, fatal. That's the way I have to put things. I'm a realist and I don't play games with people. I tell them just like it is. And I said, I'm not trying to be harsh but this is the reality. When you go out into this world, these people they're not going to pacify you. They're not going to stroke your ego. They're gonna ostracize you and throw you to the wolves and gossip, talk about you. That's why I would not engage in hyacinth or any AIDS activism, because I just didn't want everybody to know my business. And people are very catty and very petty and messy. and I just didn't want to be involved. Now my kids are grown. Like I said, I don't need that to be around the school. And your father is that. So I'm just I try to see where the youth where they stand, try and engage them that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. You know, one of the ways to prevent HIV infection is that partners, sexual partners of people who are infected
Mhm.
take HIV medicines to
Yes.
prevent themselves from becoming infected. And we call that,
Correct.
right, pre-exposure prophylaxis. And Kathleen writes, what do you think of the AIDS activists advocates on TikTok? I find that they are pushing unprotected sex because they can take this one pill a day.
Mm.
And she says, I think other sexually transmitted diseases will increase. So who would like to take that one, or both of you can comment? We see that social media is playing a role here.
So social media for me is you damned if you do, damned if you don't. And people are pushing things because I think they just want to be seen, that 15 minutes of fame. But we have children that need our support and guidance, you know, like for me being starting drugs at an early age and just wanting to be in the in crowd, you know, oh, come, let's go to Jackie's. You know what I'm saying? It's not that beautiful. No, it's not beautiful at all. So social media, it is what it is. And if we get back to those people and tell them, listen, calm that down a little bit because you're sending the wrong message. You know, we want them to have a message of life more abundantly, you know. So I don't use social media. I don't go on that often, but I haven't seen that TikTok. But hopefully they'll stop that mess.
Exactly. George, also, I just as a physician, I would say about 10 of our new patients over the last 2 years have been young African-American men having sex with men. Some of them are college students, but they usually range anywhere from 16 years of age up to 22 years of age. So that is the fastest growing group of people who are becoming HIV infected. One of the sites that they go to is something called Grindr.
Yes.
Yes.
You out there. What happens is you can hook up with anybody and go off somewhere and, you know, have a sexual encounter and never see that person again. So what kind of, I mean, I think it's important for the public to know that, but, you know, what would you say to those young men who are engaging, particularly the young Black males, men having sex with men? Do you think they have an outlet they can go to? What would you say to them?
Okay, honestly, I was on Grindr for about a week and it got on my last nerve. I just have to put that out there. I'm like, everybody, like, I can come to your house. No, you can't. And I think with the PrEP and all the new medicines and knowing, I think they're taking the fear out of being HIV positive. They're kind of glorifying it now. And it's like,
Yeah.
if I go out there and I catch it, I can just take a pill and I'll be fine. Or I can take PrEP and still have unprotected sex. They're downplaying it. It's still a serious issue.
Mhm.
So whether it's killing people now or not, it's still a disease. And Grindr, no, I don't suggest it. I mean, I know people, like I said, I was very promiscuous when I was younger. And that was a part of my life. I would not wish that on anyone.
Mhm.
I would wish this disease on anyone. But I'd have to find out how to really reach them where they are, because they Russian roulette, like I said, they're just living life haphazardly. And social media is telling them that it's okay in a sense. Don't get me wrong, social media has its great points, but it has, to me, in my opinion, more downsides.
Yes.
Thank you. There was another question in the chat. What type of support system do each of you have? That's from Dawn.
Family.
Okay.
I have my family here, my family at work, and of course you, Dr. Whitley. I just,
Thank you.
when I first came, when I was getting clean, the clinic that I was going to, I would go there stoned. They would say, Jackie, it's okay, just keep coming, keep coming. And that finally got to me. I said, okay, these people are willing to help me. I need to help myself. And that's what I tell my clients, we're not going to hold your hand. I'll give you the milk, and then you start to eat meat, so you got to do what you got to do. I'm here to help you. And I learned that as a client early on, that, people are helping you. So you got to help yourself. You want to stay alive. Like I said, I'm 66 and I never thought I'd make 40.
Fantastic.
I was using the drugs.
Fantastic.
It's a wonderful thing. I'm so grateful for my life. And I want other people to have life, You don't throw it away, because HIV does not define who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mhm.
George, anything else? What support system do you have?
I have my family, my mother, my brother, my at the time, my grandparents, my grandmother. I had this one lady who used to badger me constantly. Her name is Jackie Williams. Oh, gosh. But I'm so thankful. God knows I am very thankful. And I'm thankful with the people I surround myself with now. Like Jackie said, when you're doing drugs and you're a popular person, your doorbell, phone rings, you're constantly, hi, how you doing? Now that you're not doing anything,
Mhm.
phone does not ring, the doorbell don't ring. It's
Thank
like,
God.
yeah, exactly. So yes, I'm very thankful. And the people I'm surrounding myself, like, I don't have clients, I have family. And I
Yeah.
tell them we have to lift each other up.
Thank you. And Kathleen shares, I had no support until I met Jackie, and I think what George said too. So Jackie, you have really, you are really a support system for many people as well. Someone else asked, Ivy Peoples asked, how can we convey the importance of healthy practices for younger generations? I think we're all concerned about that. I know you've shared some things. Anything else we can do to get their attention and realize that they really are treading in dangerous waters. How do we do that?
Okay, so young people are very impressionable, and we have to keep doing what we're doing, keep speaking. We long ago we had a speakers bureau, which was a great thing. If a person sees me 66 and still living with HIV, they're going, oh my God, I got to take care of myself. Or if I'm positive, I got to keep taking that medicine. You got to do what you got to do. So we have to keep pouring this out and saying, look, HIV doesn't define who you are, and it's not the end of the road. Keep moving, stop some of your stuff. People, places, and things for me, I had to let go, because if, I moved from a town where I know I would have lost my children to the streets. So I just had to move forward, and I never looked back. Never look back. I've been clean for 21 years. And that's
amazing.
I'm telling you,
Fantastic.
every time I think about it, I pinch myself. It's amazing.
It is.
When I was using, I just didn't think I could stop. I said, what's going to happen? And once I had so much support. And I want to, if you guys are out there listening to this, thank you so much, because you know who you are, for the support that you gave me. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate both of you sharing your stories. That's amazing that you're recovering for 21 years. Yeah, I'm sure that was not easy. What about taking it to the schools? Do you think the schools would ever include it in their curriculums or curricula?
Well, first of all,
that would ever happen?
First of all, I believe it starts at home. And unfortunately, these children are not the values that we had something to come back to, Jackie and I. We're older generation. These children today are not getting that instilled in them. And so they don't believe, first of all, when you take the discipline out of the household, I'm not saying abuse children, but when you take discipline out of you can't discipline your own child. So therefore you can't tell them what to do. You can't advise them the better ways to go. So every person a person meets is an influence on that person. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's still an influence. And people are influenced easily some. And if you
Yeah.
don't have anything to revert back to, it like, oh yeah, I had to go to church every Sunday. Yeah, I had to do this. I had to clean. I had to. No, it's just like they don't have to do that. Like, get out of my room. No, I told my kids, all these are my rooms. Understand that.
Yes, yes. All right. These are, well, sometimes, that tough love.
Yeah.
What are some of the surprising misconceptions or mistrust or mistruths about HIV/AIDS that still permeate today?
Oh, people washing their dishes with bleach, and you can't stand next to me, and if I touch you or I can't kiss you, don't come near me. It's just it's horrible. But if you educate yourself, you will be on the right track. You have to educate, and that's with anything in life. You have to educate yourself. And I spoke about the doctors. Some of them really need to retraining. I'm not trying to downplay anything with doctors, because we have very good doctors that we're seeing. But you have to be educated. That's the key to understanding anything, is education.
Well, great. This is, and there is that stigma about HIV/AIDS is just as strong as it was.
Yes, it is.
Of you have reflected as it was before. So we have to continue to have these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And certainly to celebrate World AIDS Day. It's a celebration, it's an acknowledgement and memorializing and remember people who succumb to HIV/AIDS, but it's also celebrating life. People are with HIV. So it's a celebration for World AIDS Day, but we do want to make sure it's equitable and everybody has equitable access, because that's the theme, right, of this year's World AIDS Day. Well, there may have been a few more questions in the chat, but I think we will move on. No, I think we're good. Okay. One last question, because I think this is a difficult one. How do you manage pursuing a romantic relationship with honesty about your status? This is an excellent question, because I know my young people do not disclose their HIV status. But so what would you, how would you counsel a young person? Should they reveal their status? Comments. And that'll be our last question. That's a great question.
I just want to say this one thing, George, and I see you ready to talk. So when you're getting ready to date someone, first of all, you have to make sure, like the olden days, you have to make sure you're gonna be together, and then when the time is right, you tell that person, because you get to learn one another, and you tell that person, listen, I am living with HIV. And that's it. If you can't do that, then you need to move on away from that relationship. You know what I'm saying? If a person makes you feel that you can't talk to them, you have to be able to communicate with one another. And just let them know, because if you're going to be sexually active with that person, it's not fair to them not to tell them, and they let them, don't make the decision for them. They have the right to make their own decisions. And if it doesn't work, girl, move on. It's okay. A lot of fish in the sea.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. And George, you have the last comment about that.
Yes, I just had to do it. So I totally, oh God, it was the hardest and the scariest thing for me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, thank God it went well, but I just was trying to avoid it at all costs. But I just couldn't do it. Like I said, someone, and it's not tit for tat, but someone gave it to me, but no, I don't feel that way. I had to give them that choice. And thank God he stayed. So
I want to meet him.
All right. Well, thank God for that. So thank you so much for Field Day. First of all, for sharing your stories, and also for fielding these questions. They were excellent. And I thank our audience for participating.
Yeah, thank you, audience.
But go home and talk about this.
Yes.
Be recorded so we can share it with our, our families, our sorors, our friends, the community at large, because someone put in the chat, HIV is kind of a forgotten disease. And certainly as we're in the midst of this COVID pandemic, sometimes you feel that way. But it really, but we really need to remember, and we thank you all. We thank you so much for sharing. And love you, but love both of you. So thanks. So at this point, I'm going to ask us Laura LaQuanda Williams to put up the polling questions. We're going to go through them again. So I think for those of you who may not have known the answer to some of the questions, I think we've talked about it enough. So hopefully some of those have remained with you. So the first question is, which of the following groups have the highest number of newly diagnosed HIV infections in recent years in the US? So first, choose one of the following: men having sex with men, men having sex with women, or injecting drug users. Okay, so that really changed from prior. So that's great. Yes, men having sex with men is the highest group in terms of newly diagnosed HIV infections. The next question. African Americans and Blacks and Latino Hispanics represented about 70% of all new HIV cases in the US in 2019. True or false? Please complete that. Oh, wow. Okay. Unfortunately, this is true. There is a disparate representation of people of color in terms of new cases of HIV. So we have to continue to educate, talk about it, don't run from this. And we have to know how to prevent getting from becoming infected. And the last polling question, so that's terrific. Jackie and George, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And the following ways for you to prevent HIV infection. And you see the choices there. So please complete this question. It's a single choice. Okay, so 76% said the first three are correct. Yeah, you have to know your HIV status, take your medicines, and if you're infected, take your medication so you can get that viral load down to be undetectable, and you're less chance of spreading the infection, even though you're still infected. But that virus is being controlled, so that's so important. So thank you, everybody, for participating in those polling questions. And the session, we were joined by our Delta Sigma Theta CJA's first vice president, Sora Gwinnetta Joe. And I would love for her to say a few words before we close. And following Sora Gwinnetta Joe, Sora Deborah Stapleton will close this session. So Sora Joe, thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Oh, that's better. Thank you so very much. This was so informative. I do apologize. I'm trying to keep my dog quiet as I'm listening. But we truly, as always, appreciate you, Jackie, and of course, our other guests. We love you, and we thank you for keeping this very important topic on the forefront. It's our job to take this information and share it, and ensure that generations to come that we're doing what we need to do and being responsible not just to ourselves, because as we're responsible for ourselves, we're responsible to others. So we truly thank you and appreciate your time. This was a great webinar this evening.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sora Joan. Thanks for joining us. Stapleton, do you want to take us? I'm sorry. Okay, so maybe Sora Stapleton was called away. She did announce that at the beginning. Well, first of all, I want to certainly thank all our participants of the webinar who actually joined in. We really appreciate your participation.
Yes.
And you received a wealth of information from people who are the experts, who live with HIV day in and day out. They help people who are infected, and those who are not infected. They're trying to prevent new infections. So you really heard it from the experts, George Michael Alston and Jackie Williams. Fantastic. And again, truly appreciate your sharing. It's humbling. And we wish you well and continued success. Thank you so much. And good night, everyone. Be well.
Good night.
Be well.
Get tested. Get tested.
Absolutely. Good night and thank you again.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.